In the weeks after the October 7th Hamas attack on Israelis, there were numerous claims about mass rapes by Hamas soldiers of Israeli women. Soon after, in November, the group Physicians for Human Rights Israel released a position paper claiming that mass rapes took place. And then in December, the New York Times published an investigation making similar claims. The two reports were widely cited to justify Israel's brutal and ongoing genocide in Gaza. Now, Yes Magazine has published an in-depth investigation of our own, an unusual undertaking for a solutions journalism outlet like ours, debunking these two reports. And the journalist behind it is Arun Gupta, investigative reporter whose work has appeared in The Washington Post, The Nation, The Daily Beast, The Raw Story, The Guardian, The Intercept, and of course, Yes. His explosive story for Yes is entitled Claims of Mass Rape by Hamas Unravel Upon Investigation. And I should disclose for the audience that I was Arun's editor for the story. Welcome to the program, Arun.
Thanks for having me on, Sonali.
So first, let's talk about these the reports themselves and how seriously they've been taken. They are available to audiences. They're linked from your story. People can read them themselves. And if you just look at those stories, it sounds horrific. It sounds like something, it can sound very credible for someone who's not an investigative journalist. Is that a major reason why you felt it was important and worth the time, the months that it took for you to debunk them?
Exactly. And also the fact that it was having such an influence on global public opinion. And for anyone who's not well versed in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I don't think they realize how sophisticated Israeli propaganda is. They use this term Hasbara, and they have used these allegations, completely unsubstantiated allegations of mass rape, explicitly to wage a brutal war against Gaza. That was one of the things I reported in my Intercept piece, and will also be in a forthcoming article in Yes Magazine.
Right. So many of the stories, many of the allegations about what happened, horrific sounding allegations, basically were on the basis of about a dozen witnesses, only two of them claiming to have actually seen firsthand something happening before their eyes. Tell me a little bit about these witnesses and why so many of them are so questionable.
Yeah, so what we did is we looked at 11 different media investigations, or 11 different investigations, including the New York Times report and the Physicians for Human Rights Israel, as well as others by outlets such as BBC, Reuters, Washington Post, Associated Press. And it started to become clear that you see the same names over and over again. And furthermore, we can categorize these 12 individuals into various groups. Now, there are some others, but it's really these 12 individuals who account for the vast majority of claims that you see. And one thing to understand is some outlets, for completely I think, inexplicable, but reality bogus reasons, would anonymize these sources. There was no reason to do so because we were easily able to identify who they were. And also many of these sources use partial names, or they use different spellings of names. There's one individual, Simcha Greineman, who has at least 6 different spellings of his name. And what this does is it makes it appear that there are many more witnesses than there are. So in terms of these 12 witnesses, 5 come from this organization called Zaka. And that's what I was referring to in terms of Israel weaponizing these claims. Zaka volunteers were all over the media. And in fact, there are more Zaka volunteers. And they stayed outright. There's one individual in particular, Yossi Lando, who on 4 different occasions, he's a senior official, he's talked about, we use our imagination. When we go into the houses, the bodies are telling us stories. They're outright saying they fabricate stories. And Yossi Landau was one of the individuals that the Times used for its discredited report. And in a follow-up report, the Times devoted devoted a huge portion to basically whitewashing Zaka and Yassi Landau. Now, he's told all sorts of fabricated stories, such as a pregnant a mother and fetus that was butchered by Hamas. At least four of the 12 witnesses have told this fabricated story. And all the Zaka stories appear to be fabricated. Then three of the witnesses come from a military base, Shura, a military morgue. They've also fabricated stories. Then you have two witnesses who discovered bodies after they had been killed, human remains. One is this paramedic with the elite Israeli search and rescue unit. Another was just a music festival promoter. And so when it comes down to it, there are actually only two witnesses who claim they saw rape. One of them is Raz Cohen. He is former Israeli Special Forces. And then this anonymous witness, only known as Sapir, who initially came to the public via clips from a police video. And both their stories, Cohen's story changes repeatedly. Sapir's is utterly outlandish. She's claiming she saw 5 gang rapes, Hamas militants carrying around 3 heads that they were having. She's indicating that they were having sexual relations with the heads. Both Raz Cohen and Sapir are indicating that militants are having sex with corpses. And the fact is, these incidents would have left so much forensic evidence, would have left so much photographic evidence, and yet Israel has not produced any. So what you have of these 12 witnesses, 8 of them have fabricated stories. 11 of the 12 are tied to the Israeli military and police. And I'll just say, could we imagine a world in which Hamas militants are putting out stories? They're known to fabricate stories, and they have no evidence whatsoever for their stories. And all the media is like, this absolutely happened. This is true. The way that the New York Times, the New Yorker, BBC, and many other publications have acted like there is solid proof that these rapes happen. And I think the real danger is that this is going to undermine rape as a weapon of war. It does real damage to feminism.
Undermine the seriousness of rape as a, yeah.
Yes. Undermine the decades of work it's taken to get rape recognized as a weapon of war, because what you'll have in the future is states and non-state actors, when they have credible allegations that they used rape as a weapon of war, they're just going to turn around and say, well, Israel lied and this is just more lies.